Force of friction examples. Sliding an object dragging a heavy material, while you walk rolling ball stops automatically friction experienced by a meteor while entering the Earth's atmosphere. Climber plants the flow of ink in pens. Ironing a shirt. Tug of war pulley to draw water from the well. Cleaning of the surface using fluid. Skydiver. Sliding an object. Sliding any object over a table is an example of the force of friction. When you slide an object across a table, it comes to the rest position after a certain time because of the force of friction. Dragging a heavy material. It becomes challenging to move heavy material. We have to apply force to drag it. This means that the force in the opposite direction has a higher magnitude than the force applied. Therefore, to move that material, a force higher than the force of friction should be applied. While you walk. While walk, we generally experience the force of friction. Walking happens only due to the presence of friction between feet and the ground. It creates a grip between them which helps us to move forward. Here the force applied by foot is equal and opposite to the force of friction produced by ground. Rolling ball stops automatically. When you apply force on a ball, it starts to roll, but after a certain time, the speed of the ball decreases, and it comes to rest. This speed change takes place due to the force of friction. Friction experienced by meteor. Before entering the Earth's atmosphere, meteors experience a high force of friction, and due to this, they get burned before falling onto the surface of the Earth. Climber plants. Many climber plants are seen in nature climb onto tree surfaces with the help of the force of friction. In general, they use rough surfaces like the trunk and bark of a tree to climb. The flow of ink in pens. The flow of ink in pen is due to a type of force of friction called fluid friction. The flow of fluid through surfaces experiences friction, and ink's viscosity is moderated for a reasonable rate of flow. Ironing a shirt. Without the force of friction, the iron box would slide through the cloth when you try to iron it. Indeed, friction is the phenomenon that helps apply pressure on the wrinkled cloth. Here, pressure is one of the affecting factors of friction, and is directly proportional to friction. Tug of war. In the game of tug of war, which is usually played as a fun sport, two teams pull each other with the help of solid rope between them. A lot of force of friction is involved here between the hand of players and the rope. Pulley to draw water from the well. The force of friction between pulley and rope gives a strong grip to hold the bucket. In general, to fetch water from a well, we use rope and a bucket connected with the help of a pulley. Friction helps us to pull water from the well. Cleaning of the surface using fluids. Some liquids are generally used to mop surfaces because they help to reduce the force of friction between particles of dust and the surface, making the surface appear clean. Skydiver. Skydiver experiences a lot of force of friction while diving from air. While diving, his speed increases, and to perform such stunts, an individual should be physically and mentally fit. Examples of increasing friction. If the surface is rough, it experiences more friction and more grip. The examples of increasing friction are as follows. Gymnasts. After rain, the surface becomes slippery. It is made rough by spreading sand to increase friction to make it easy to walk. Treaded tires. The tires of vehicles have a special type of design called treads which are visible on their surface. It helps to increase the friction between the ground and the tire. Gymnasts. Gymnasts usually apply a special type of coarse material on their hands to get a firm grip. This coarse material helps in increasing the friction between their hands and the objects they use to perform. Football shoes have studs. Football shoes are designed with unique studs, which increases the friction and helps the players have a better grip between the ground and their shoes. If there were no studs designed, a chance that they might have slipped during play has occurred. Kabaddi player wiping hands with sand. Before the game of Kabaddi, players usually wipe their hands with sand to increase the friction. In addition, it helps them to have a stronghold on the player of the opposite team. Sole of shoes is grooved. The surface of our sandals is grooved to increase friction, which helps us walk comfortably on a path. Examples of decreasing friction. We create a smoother surface because it decreases friction and objects move far with lesser grip. Examples of decreasing friction are as follows. Applying lubricants. By applying lubricants like grease or oil, we can decrease the force of friction between moving parts of a vehicle engine. As a result, it decreases the wear and tear of parts and makes them last longer. Applying oil on door hinges. We apply oil on door handles to decrease friction to make the movement smooth and easy. The oil applied here changes the dry friction into fluid friction. Polishing surface. Irregularity of the surfaces can be reduced by polishing. Here, polishing reduces the friction by applying the oils on door handles to make the movement manageable. By streamlining. Streamlining of bodies decreases the force of friction. For example, air friction decreases based on the design of streamlined bodies of aeroplanes. Similarly, fluid friction decreases if ships' body design is streamlined. High friction examples. High friction usually acts for dry and rough surfaces. It is very high that makes objects slow down. High friction examples are as follows. Cycling on the road. Friction helps to move, start, stop and turn a bicycle. This high friction makes sure that you do not skid off the road. With high friction, the design of tires proves the much needed grip for the cycle. Wear and tear of the shoe. High friction causes wear and tear of shoes. The same friction which helps us to walk, if it increases, it can cause damage to your shoes. Brakes of motor vehicles. The tires of a motor vehicle are made rough to increase friction. A vehicle's brakes always work on the friction phenomenon between the wheel and brake pad. Here high friction helps to slow down the motion of the vehicle. Rubbing hands. Rubbing hands is a daily life example of high friction. When we rub our hands, we feel our hands getting warmer. Here, high friction produces heat energy, giving us a warmer feeling. Gecko on a wall. Gecko lizard is a good example of high friction. With the help of the force of friction, it will be easy for the gecko lizard to climb on the wall because high friction acts between its legs and the surface of the wall. Climbing a rock. When an individual tries to climb a rock, he experiences high friction. This force of friction helps establish a strong grip between his feet, hands, and rock surface. And it also prevents him from chance slipping. Lighting a matchstick. When we run a matchstick against the rough surface of the matchbox, high friction is created, which causes lighting up of the matchstick. It happens due to the heating effect of friction. Forest fires. Forest fires are due to high friction, which is produced when two trees rub against each other. This occurs due to the heating effect of friction resulting in fire. Low friction examples. Low friction usually acts on smooth and wet floors and keeps things moving. For example, low friction is usually observed in the following examples. Low friction examples. Low friction usually acts on smooth and wet floors and keeps things moving. For example, low friction is usually observed in the following examples. Carom board. When a striker is made to slide over a carom board, the striker experiences friction. Here the force of friction is low friction, which slows the speed of the striker and sometimes may resist its motion. In general, the dusting powder decreases friction and makes the striker move smoothly over the surface. Flying of birds. Flying birds are a natural example of low friction. This is because birds have light and perfectly designed body to reduce friction. Sliding in amusement park. Playing slide is an example of sliding friction. Slide reduces friction coefficient and makes the surface slippery, which offers low friction and stops us from falling and getting hurt. Thus, sliding gives us a thrilling experience without any harm. Sled sliding. Sled sliding over ice or walking on ice is an example of kinetic friction. The ice present over the surface reduces the force of friction between an individual and the surface. This low friction causes the person to slide or slip very smoothly on the surface. Rolling a bowling ball. Rolling a bowling ball is an example of rolling friction. When you roll a ball down the lane, the ball experiences low friction, which makes it easy to roll over the lane and hit the target. Limiting friction examples. Limiting friction is the maximum friction that a body reaches. After reaching this value, the body moves further. Limiting friction examples are as follows. Vehicle on a hill. A vehicle on a mountain/hill will not move down when parked, and this happens due to the high value of limiting friction. It makes the car remain in a state of rest. In general, limiting friction is directly proportional to the mass of the body. Writing on a book. We can write on a book or anything because of limiting friction. The force of friction between pen and book makes the particles stick together on the book. Moving an object on the ground. It feels tough to move a heavy object. It is because when a force applied increases, static friction also increases, and after it reaches the value of limiting friction, the object starts to move. Pushing a loaded vehicle. Pushing a loaded vehicle is a very difficult task. This is because the value of static friction is very high in the beginning. However, it sometimes reaches the value of limiting friction, which becomes less difficult to push the vehicle. Frequently asked question, FAQs. What is a force of friction? Sometimes we find it difficult to move objects. It is because an opposing force resists the motion. Such kind of force is called friction, which acts when two surfaces come in contact with each other. As a result, it decreases the speed of the body in motion. What is the coefficient of friction? The coefficient of friction always depends on the type of materials used. The coefficient of friction between the surfaces is described as the ratio of limiting friction and the normal force that acts between them. Coefficient of friction equals. Coefficients of friction range from 0 to greater than 1. What is rolling friction? Rolling friction is the friction force that occurs when an object rolls on the surface. This force of friction generally opposes the motion of a body that rolls on the ground. It depends on the body's mass. For example, it occurs when a ball cylinder rolls over a surface. What is static friction? Static friction is a friction force that makes the body remain at rest. The force of friction is experienced when we try to push an object at rest without actually disturbing relative motion between the body and the surface. What are the factors affecting friction? Static friction is a friction force that makes the body remain at rest. Nature of sliding object. Nature of surface. Design or shape of the object. State of matter of the object. Area of surfaces in contact. Nature of friction involved. List some advantages and disadvantages of friction. Some advantages and disadvantages of friction are as follows. Advantages. Disadvantages. We can walk due to friction. Tires and shoes tear out. Friction between the pen and paper helps us to write. Friction between parts of machines generates heat. This may cause damage to machines. Why sportsperson use spike shoes? Sports people generally use shoes with spikes to have a strong grip while playing. The shoes are designed uniquely to increase friction force between the ground and sole of shoes due to spikes. Please visit our website lambdageeks.com for more articles on technology, engineering, mathematics, and various other domains. Scientific calculator and many more other tools.